Good evening, everybody. Oh, Charlie's there. There he is. I mean, listen, if you want me to be on my own, I will.
Hey, okay, I'll just go and take a smoke.
I just charge extra when that happens.
Okay, you go. Bye.
No, come back. I need your support, especially for this start part. Because I haven't not that we well you do a lot of preparation for these episodes, Charlie. Again, I just mostly just show up. And but I spent so much time reading the comments on my UCF Facebook post this week. I didn't have time to prepare for this show. So, sorry, Orlando Facebook post, not UCF. I take that back.
Oh yeah, you were very busy with that.
And if anybody wants to jump on and talk about this forfeit frenzy that we had this weekend in a men's rugby, feel free to jump on rugbyfl.com/join. You can always join the show. Episode 43 of TFRO. Charlie, how we doing?
We're doing great. I'll just made a little add to what you just said. You can jump in, but like towards the end of the show.
Yes, towards the end. Yes, we can hang out in the green room. Hang out in the green room, and we'll bring you in if you want to talk about what's going on with Florida rugby. Why are these teams forfeiting, Charlie? I'm sure it varies from team to team, but it was a little disappointing to see them rolling in this past week. We lost, 3 playoff games due to forfeiture?
Yes.
Listen, I remember going up to play Atlanta Renegades met us in Jacksonville once when I was playing for Boca. We played Atlanta Renegades in Jacksonville. They graciously met us kind of halfway, and we maybe took up 14. It may have even been 13. I was playing in the pack, which I never played, but we went up there and we fulfilled our fixture and we got hammered, but we had a great time. And it's disappointing to see that these teams, listen, again, it's an individual situation when it comes to each team, but to see these teams not producing enough to go up and play one game of rugby is disappointing.
It is. There's a lot of angles to this topic. Well, maybe
for sure.
At the end.
We'll see if anybody wants to jump. We did invite Orlando to come on. They said they were all too busy. They're not too busy playing rugby apparently, so they did not show up. They're not showing up tonight. But well, if anybody wants to jump on and changes their mind, we'd love to have a discussion from any of the teams that forfeited, just about their struggles, and perhaps there's got people out there that could help them, get back on track. We've seen the Tridents had years of struggling; they've got their act together. There's other teams that have had years of success and are now struggling themselves. So, as we know, Charlie, it all starts at the top, whether it's coaching and or general management, presidency, etc. If things are going wrong up there, then it's going to trickle down, unfortunately. All right. Off the top, we just have one thing to confirm. The wife mentioned this earlier today, and I missed the story completely. The Guardian reported on Thursday that USA is basically going to be guaranteed to be hosting the 2031 Men's World Cup and the 2033 Women's World Cup. It was originally going to be the 29 women and then the 2031 men, but they wanted to build off the men's event heading into the women's event. So apparently mid-May, they're going to be announcing that USA will be hosting the Rugby World Cup. Do you think we're going to get any games down here, Charlie? What do you think? September, October? Nice time of year down here. Not so nice weather down elsewhere.
It is.
It'll be interesting to see. Maybe Orlando might be the closest I think we get, but we'll see.
Can we play at the Dolphin Stadium? Can we?
I think we could. It's a beautiful facility. Right, update. I assume the field's big enough. They played.
I'm just wondering if we're going to have like a 2-meter in goal. I'm worried about that.
That's always an issue. I know. FAU is certainly built for it. It's 30,000. Could host some of the smaller games here, but we'll see. So in a couple of months, we should find out for sure. It's going to cost a lot of money, Charlie. It said $500 million, and I'm sure the fact that we still owe World Rugby some money. Oh, we do. They already have a representative on our board because of the state of affairs financially. So I'm sure World Rugby said, well, yeah, you can host it, but we're going to take a larger chunk than anybody else would. So we'll see what happens with that. So yeah, 2031 men and 2033 women apparently on course to being named in mid-May to be held in the USA, as long as they get support from the Biden White House, said World Rugby chief Alan Gilpin on Thursday. They're not talking to anybody else. So it seems like there's just a few things to be put in place. We've got the facilities, obviously. We've got it's an easy place to get to for much of the world, relatively cheap. So I think that'll be good stuff. If we're still alive, Charlie, it's still 9 years away.
Yep, that's a long time, for sure.
But hopefully that's exciting stuff. All right, let's get into some. Before we get into the weekly review, the playoffs did start. We lost a few games, but we did have some games as well, and we'll go over those results as well as the fixtures for this coming week. But before we get to that, let's bring in April 16th, coming up Easter weekend. We have Tropical Sevens, Charlie, which has obviously become one of the biggest events in Florida rugby.
Hi, John.
And this year they are moving to Tampa from Orlando. And the man in charge of everything is on our screen right now, John Seiner. John, thank you for joining us this evening on T-Throat.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Nice to see you, John.
I'm very well. How are you? How's the stress level? Just less than a month away, 3 weeks away now.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. It's good. Listen, I could complain every day about how much is left to be done, but stepping back, big picture, things are amazing. We had 2 years ago, we had to cancel because of COVID. About this time 2 years ago, we had to cancel what would have been our biggest event to date in 2020. And that was really rough. And then, last year we were able to bounce back and have a, sort of modified post-COVID first, return to rugby kind of thing. And we did pretty well last year, knowing that a lot of teams still couldn't travel. But this year it's just back and it's exploded. And there's a huge demand, obviously, for rugby. And here we are. We're at the same point now where we were 2 years ago, going into what will be our biggest event by far, and really now one of the biggest events in North America. So we're 130 plus teams coming to Tampa in a couple weeks, and we're on wait list across almost pretty much all of our divisions. One of which is brand new, which we can talk about. It was the under 12 co-ed division, which is a new division for us, and that's very exciting. So right now things are looking really, really good. There's a lot of operational aspects to tie down, but clearly the rugby community is back and hungry for rugby, and the tournament's really strong at the moment.
How many fields are we looking at?
So we are at 8 pitches, which is the biggest we've ever done before, and we probably could expand to more, but we just physically don't have all the equipment and everything ready to expand. We will next year, but that was the main reason why we're on wait list for all across all these divisions, is we just physically don't have the the capacity. And it's been amazing. To turn away teams is a privileged position to be in, but at the same time, we don't like the idea of denying rugby for teams that want to come play. So we'll definitely make some efforts to expand for next year. Unfortunately, some of the late arrivals came from Florida, so we have a few Florida teams that are on the wait list. So we'd love to get them in if possible, but things are really, really positive. We're getting a lot of new teams coming from all over North America, and we have a team from a team from England, which is a cool story as well.
Who's coming from England?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
No, I just want to ask, how many teams are coming from other countries?
Well, if you count Canada as another country, which we do, they had a huge challenge because they had much stricter international travel, COVID, especially return to Canada policy. So they all had to get a COVID test within 48 hours of their return, with the risk of having to isolate on this side of the border. And that was really tricky for them to navigate. So we didn't get the full contingent of what we would have from Canadians, but they still signed up. And we're getting, we must have at least 30 sides coming from Canada. And of course, they rescinded all travel requirements on the COVID level as of April 1st. So the timing worked out perfectly for us, and they can all come, and they're super excited. We see it all over the social media. They're promoting, all of their indoor rugby, saying, can't wait to get to Florida. So it's pretty cool. And then we have this really cool story of this team out of England. So when we canceled in 2020, we had obviously all these registrations that were still open. And many of those teams, including from Australia, just said, listen, we'll come back at some point. So keep our registrations on hold for us. One of them was this U14 boys team out of the northeast corner of England. And they were just super keen on coming, devastated that they couldn't come in 2020, turned it around. They're coming as U16 boys this time in a much better position. And they've got this really cool story of how they fundraised. It's kids from a disadvantaged and kind of impoverished situation. So some of these kids never traveled outside of their own town, much less out of the country. And they're getting pretty cool press in the UK as a result. But this is a really, really cool story. Very, very excited for these guys to come. And I bet they're going to be a proper side as well.
What's the name of that team so we can give them a shout out, John?
Well, they're the Jerovian Jaguars, and they're coming out of the
Jaguars
up there by Newcastle and Sunderland area.
We used to have a Northeast team that would come down here, Charlie, right? Every other year or so. I can't remember the name of the team. The Northeast seems to have an affection for Florida. What's been the biggest operational challenge, John, this year?
Well, we switched venues this year, so that was a bit of a stress because we sort of had the operations down pat at the venue in Orlando, but we knew that we wanted to expand and move forward or get bigger moving forward. So it was a challenge last year after last year's event to figure out what venue we were going because we hadn't lined up Tampa yet. So that took a good 6 months, and as a result, everything was sort of delayed in announcing everything. But we were very, very happy to finally secure the venue in Tampa, and it will be a learning lesson for us because it's the first time we've done it this year. But they're I don't know if you've ever been there, but the venue is really sweet. It's 15 total pitches. It's all pre-wired for live stream.
Wow.
It's really nice quality turf. So we have the same playing conditions as we would have in Orlando. And it's cool. Tampa is also, it's got the whole pirate Gasparilla vibe. And we've leaned into that a lot. And, we're real excited. We've got the new ball and new branding out. This just arrived. And, we've got the kind of the Tampa logo and motif going. You'll see like pirate stuff in our merchandise this year. So on one hand, it's been a challenge to do the move to Tampa, and there's probably still learning lessons to go through this year, but it's also extremely exciting to be able to kind of see our future and an ability to grow. So that's pretty cool.
How many people do you have involved at the tournament when it's running, between everybody that is managing the tournament, referees, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, to say that this is a mega event, it maybe is an understatement, right? So, we've always, as approached it as, let's make this a high quality event and with an expectation. And that's worked with people. They know that when they come to Tropical Sevens, they're going to get a legit rugby experience with good competition and everything across the board. So just to throw out a few numbers, we'll have upwards of 140 teams. We'll have 2,500 athletes, over 3,000 people on site. We have a core team of probably eight of us that will work the event. We'll have 20 plus volunteers. And I'll give a shout out to Joe Hillbush at Tampa Bay Crew, who's organizing the local community to come out and help and embrace it. St. Pete Pelicans as well. And then, looking at referees, for example, Roy Monk, who you all know is the Tropical Sevens referee manager, always does a great job. And we partner with Back 10 Pros, who you probably also know really well. So we'll have a referee program with 50 referees coming from all over. Wow. The Back 10 Pros supplies the referee coaching program on top of that. So each of the referees will have live coaching as we go. So there's probably 10 to 16 of those coaches as well. So you're looking at a referee program of 60 to 70 people. We've got all of our athletic trainers. We'll have 6 to 8 athletic. We have a head trainer and probably 7 athletic trainers on site. And then we've got the team from the Tampa Bay Sports Commission that will be there handling the live broadcast. So it's a huge event. And then you've got the staff that actually runs the venue, which isn't technically us, but they'll be there making sure the fields are lined and everything's taken care of and the operation runs smoothly. I mean, 1,000 parking places. I mean, it's a mega event, and it's a lot to do. Thankfully, it's not our first year to do it, but it's cool. It'll be good.
I was mostly asking for Ross because he does his tournament with 4 fields, and it's only 2 people running everything. So there you go, Ross.
That's not, I have a team coming from England this year too. We got Birmingham Moseley coming, so that'd be fun. But yeah, nothing quite to the scale of Tropical Sevens, and I'm grateful for that. Well, before we let you go, John, any divisions with open space, or is there everybody waitlisted at the moment?
No, we've got, I think, under 16 boys and girls that still have some space.
Okay.
And possibly some U14. It changes that, we get pinged every day with teams, so it kind of changes. We've had a few withdrawals, so there has been some spots that have opened up, but not too bad. It seems like really hey, there's a look at our merchandise right there. You can kind of see that. That's pretty cool. We've got some interesting partnerships as well. I mean, now that we've gotten to an interesting size, people are wanting to associate with the event. So there's a company called Next Phase Rugby. If you've heard of them, they connect young athletes with colleges. They get the players their profiles on their website, and they link up the player with the coaches or the colleges, and they can kind of facilitate recruiting efforts. So that's pretty cool. It's an app that you can check out. They'll be on site there. We'll have our merchandise partner again, which is International Tri-Zone. And if you've met Mark Andrade, who you can see the designed that's the singlet jersey this year, which is, I think, pretty sweet, pretty cool. And we'll do big numbers again for merchandise. Again, the balls, we've already pre-sold a bunch of balls already. And
can I get one of those balls, please?
Yeah.
See my collection up there. See?
Yeah. Charlie,
yes, you got to go there, Charlie, to get it.
You got to get on site, buddy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a quick question about the font on that board, because I'm a graphic designer. Is that font does that belong to Tampa in some way, or it was just picked?
Just pirate looking.
We designed ourselves, but it's got the pirate look to it. We debated putting a skull and crossbones on it, and we said, well, let's stick to our branding for now. It's it's got kind of the black and orange, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, I'm gonna have to drop by then.
Well, good stuff, John. Let's also mention the combine. There's the tournament's Friday, Saturday, but there's also a combine, which Charlie showed a link for, which USA Rugby will have a heavy presence at. I know, in regards to U18s to be looked at, as well as U23. So even if you're not going up to play, if you don't have a team for this tournament, try and get up there on Thursday. Obviously, I know school, it is Easter weekend. I know some schools are off, some schools aren't. But if you get up there on Thursday afternoon, even spend, and even if you're not playing, as I said, get looked at by USA Rugby selectors.
Yeah. Listen, that's one of the great things about Tropical Sevens is that teams can come in early, set up training camp, and they can play trainings during the week. And, with 130 some teams, that's getting really taken advantage of. So teams are coming in early, doing trainings Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday is all 8 pitches are booked full on. And then we've got the combine that runs 12 to 6. And that's a pretty cool thing as well. We've done it for a few years. USA Weightlifting comes as one of our partner organizations that has a lot of equipment, and they run it, which is cool. A nice cross promotion for their sport. And then USA Rugby now sees that, since all of these players are on site, they don't have to do, their own. It kind of saves them from doing it on their own. So they show up, and it works well for them. So Brendan and his team will be on site looking at young Eagles side by side with the combine. So yeah, if you're a player, you can come down, you can run yourself through the combine, and then you can just make sure that you're connecting with USA Rugby in terms of making sure you're in their database, you're getting looked at, you're interfacing with their scouts, and it's a great win-win. And then even on top of that, we must have we'll have, I don't know, between 30 and 50 colleges there on their own, just recruiting, looking at players. And we know multiple players in the past have gotten offers as a result of Tropical Sevens. So it's a pretty cool facilitation of those younger athletes finding, it's vice versa. The athletes find the colleges, but the colleges find the players too there. as well. So that's a very, very cool aspect of the tournament.
No, awesome event. April 15th and 16th in Tampa with the combine on the Thursday, and then Easter Sunday we can all rest and eat chocolate. So John, thanks a lot for coming on. Good luck this year. I know the stress level is going to increase as we get a little closer, but hopefully it runs nice and smoothly for you, and we'll see you again next year. Well, actually, I'm sure we'll talk to you afterwards as well.
No problem. You guys are always doing great things, so keep up the good work.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
All
right, gents. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The Sportsplex in Tampa will be hosting that. We did have a question about why the
You're not planning to go, Ross?
What's that?
You're not planning to go to Tropical Sevens?
I don't know. We'll see. I don't have much going on that weekend except for Cagney Coburn's slip and slide, which is also that day. Another massive event in Florida. If Cagney's watching, he's been texting me asking if we're coming. It's his 40th. It's his 40th birthday as well. So that might almost have a bigger
to get to that event because it's getting so big, man.
There may be such a demand for the slip and slide. I stay off the slip and slide because I'm concerned I may injure myself, but I enjoy watching the kids go down there. But anyway, we did have one question in the chat about why the FCC state champs is the same day as Tropical Sevens. That's a question for people above my pay grade. We did invite some of those people onto the show tonight from the FYRU, but they declined our invitation. It's a little disappointing, especially with the U23 division, now happening at Tropical Sevens. But listen, I don't do the scheduling, and it's not an easy task.
I think it's basically because of scheduling,
No, it is.
Just don't fall.
Listen, if the two teams agree to play on Easter Sunday, they go ahead and do it, and they can all still play at Tropical Sevens. But anyway, let's get on to the much superior style of rugby, 15s, Charlie. Well, what you and I really live for, not sevens. My sevens days were over when I was about 12. So we're first going to chat on the college sides of things. They had a rough result this past weekend against the #1 team, Florida State, but UNF have come on strong, Charlie, this year. They finished third in the standings and will host the playoff game next Saturday, April 2nd in Jacksonville. So let's bring on Ed Clark and Ethan Smith from the UNF. Is it the Dead Birds, right?
Yes, sir. Right? The Dead Birds.
Dead Birds. I'm not sure where that nickname came from, but it's an interesting one.
UNF's official mascot is the Osprey.
The Ospreys, that's right.
But the athletic department only wanted the varsity sports to be called Osprey. So since the club was kind of the redheaded stepchild anyways, they called themselves the Dead Birds, which is a cooler name for a rugby team.
That's funny. We had that issue with FAU. FAU wouldn't let us use their logo until this year. It was the first year they let us use the actual logo, which is one bit of an advancement in that aspect. But Ed and Ethan, again, congrats on the season so far. Only a couple of losses, I think, right? And Ed, give us a bit about your rugby history and just how you ended up at UNF and sort of how this season's gone from your point of view.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having us on tonight, guys, and thanks for all you've been doing for rugby in general in the state, between the referees and the podcast and Charlie with the videos and the stats and everything. You guys are doing the Lord's work. I first started playing at the University of Florida, probably late 90s, early 2000s. Didn't know really what rugby was till I got there, and I fell in love with the game day one. Didn't really play a whole lot of men's rugby. Just did the annual alumni game. Linked up with the Master Gators in 2008 when they started, and then I just was going to the gym, and the guy at the front desk was about to become UNF's head coach. This is fall of 2011. So I jumped in as an assistant and became the head coach, I want to say towards the end of 2018.
And how have things progressed? Obviously, back when you started, I know that the club had a couple of down years. But this year, right in the middle of the pack, competing with everybody. What's been the difference since you started? What have you really tried to instill with this program that's led to this success?
The biggest difference has been numbers. In years past, we were averaging, if we were lucky, maybe 14, 15 guys out of practice. I had a couple of years where I was not able to bring two forward packs together to do a proper, scrum practice. Big worry when COVID hit and we kind of came back was, are we going to be able to get numbers again? Because right before COVID hit, our numbers were improving. We were averaging around 20, 22 guys a practice. We didn't get a U23 program off the ground during COVID. A few of the guys played with Jack's Men's. Some of the guys went and played for their respective hometown men's clubs. So I was really concerned, but I mean, credit to the boys. They have recruited their tails off from day one. So we're averaging about 30 per practice, which was unheard of a few years ago. I have 2 sets of forwards that can actually scrum against each other. So the numbers are great. I mean, we're the small, in terms of the state schools that are playing rugby right now, we have the smallest full-time male enrollment.
Okay.
So, credit to them for just recruiting their asses off and getting the bodies in there. And then, we have a good amount of coaches, both who played for UNF and who come from outside of the program. And so that's allowed me to kind of go around and handle other aspects of the team. But again, it all comes down to the players.
Well, we've got one of our players with us here, Ethan Smith. Thanks for coming on. Tell us a bit about your rugby background and talk a bit about Ed. We're talking about recruiting and how you guys really go about it. I know a lot of colleges do struggle with that, but you guys seem to have had good success this year.
What is the secret?
Don't tell everything. But
well, first of all, thanks for having us on as well. Appreciate all that you do. Love the photos, love the videos. But yeah, the big thing this year, Ed said it, recruiting has been on point. I mean, I don't know if it's something in the air, but we've always, we've really made an effort of recruiting on campus at least once a week. We'll set up a table, a little booth, throw around the rugby ball on campus and just try and, catch some people's attention, stopping guys that are walking by, this and that. We have bumped it up to trying to get out there twice a week now. So that could make all the difference on its own, but it just seems like we're getting a lot more bites than we used to, which is great to see. And, like Ed said, we're getting 30 plus guys out at practice, which when I started back in 2019, it was the same. It was maybe 15 to 20 guys.
Right.
And now, 30 plus guys, it's insane. So
let me ask, do you get a lot of kids from abroad in the university, like players from Europe or down under?
I wouldn't say, we do a whole lot, but we do typically have, exchange students on campus, and more often than not, 1 or 2 will at least come out to practice. I remember our last 15 season pre-COVID, we had a exchange student from England that came over, and he was an animal. He was killing it. This season, off the top of my head, I think not too many exchange students. So
and
a lot of Florida boys.
Typically, if you just recruit from the university, I mean, how much experience do these players have? Or right now, how is the team more or less, overall as far as experience?
So good question. Yeah, I mean, probably the most common situation in Florida rugby is new talent means no experience, and I think that's right where we're at. I mean, I'm so thankful that we have such a large team, and I think maybe 5 or 6 guys on our starting 15 have some form of rugby experience.
Oh wow!
But all 20-something plus other guys on the team, this is their first season ever playing. So definitely a learning curve, but definitely some of them have naturally, and just they've been real game changers. So we're appreciative of that.
Coach, that is a good thing in some sense, because if you have this team already sort of solid and they're mostly young players, the future is bright.
Yes,
absolutely. Of the 23 guys who suited up against Florida State, 15
images from your game.
Yeah, so of the 23 that dressed for Florida State, 15 are in their first year playing rugby at UNF. Out of those 15, 12 are in their first year of playing any kind of rugby. And of those same 15, 8 just started playing rugby now in the spring. They did not have the benefit of a fall preseason. So we're very optimistic about the future. They're really good guys, really coachable. They listen. So again, we're really optimistic about the future.
Yeah, you're a young team, Ed, and who are some players we should watch out for individually that you think could play at the next level, perhaps?
In terms of individual players, we got a couple of kids that were in the high school programs. We have one homegrown kid, Chris Newton, who was the Jacksonville Wolverines U19. This one young man, Aiden Porto, who played with Boca. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not.
I've heard that name. Yes.
Yeah, he's a Swiss Army knife type player. We've thrown him in like 3 different positions, which he's all undersized for. But he's really good attitude, very coachable, really sneaky at the breakdown. So that's a kid I'd keep an eye on. Our number 8, Wyatt Dodd, big ginger. Another, Florida boy. This is his first year playing rugby. A lot of athletic ability, really hard runner. So those are some individuals to keep an eye out for.
Good stuff.
Ross, we need to. I've always noticed that you guys have a pretty particular pregame ritual,
Yes.
and I'm actually going to run it here.
Okay.
We need the sound actually because you guys do the blowing of the. So what is going on there?
That's a version of Botalele. That's something we used to do at the University of Florida back in the day. And when I came on board a few years into my time at UNF as an assistant, we were having an inter-squad scrimmage, blue against white. I was coaching one side, the then head coach was coaching the other. And I decided to get the boys fired up, and I just led them in that impromptu chant, and they decided they wanted to do it before their game, so they just yell out a bunch of gibberish 3 times in a row, and the volume increases every time they do it. I know Ethan's a big fan of it.
Love it.
Ethan, heading in. Go ahead, Charlie.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ethan, heading into the playoffs, what does this team have to do to perhaps? I know you got to play UF in the first round, a team that you beat pretty handily earlier in the season, but what do you guys have to do to progress as far as you can in these playoffs?
So I'd say, 2 of the biggest hindrances we're facing right now is injuries, for one. We've got some, really valuable players. Some, unfortunately, won't be making it back this season. We've got one guy, our 10, Ryan Banneret, who he'll be coming back for playoffs. So he's a game changer on his own. But second to that, being such a young team, pretty minimal experience, we really just need to focus on playing our game, running our scheme when it comes to game time. A lot of times, once the game starts, the panic ensues and our team's just picking up the ball and running and just forgetting everything. So, a big part of this is just, preparing ourselves with the knowledge to play a smart game of rugby, and then also just kind of like taking a breath and just playing the game that we know instead of, just letting it all unfold. So that's two big things we'll be focusing on this week, I'm sure. Cardio.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Always a big thing. Well, Charlie, you got anything else before we wrap it up?
No. I was just gonna actually ask how to the coach how important do you think is the mental preparation of a team when you know in advance that you may not be like the front runner for that game, but you do have a chance. And we have seen many times like a much stronger team be defeated because the other team stayed the 80 minutes in the game 100%. And they just did not give up. And well, you have to play smart, of course, when you're playing against a stronger team. And do you look into that for these games, upcoming games?
Yeah, I mean, attitude is one of the three pillars of rugby: attitude, fitness, and communication. I've told the boys before, if you go into this game thinking you're going to lose, then you probably shouldn't be playing. You got to go into every game thinking that you can win and thinking that you should win. Whether it's a matter of playing smart, I tell the guys, you're going to mess up. You're going to knock the ball on. Something's going to happen. I don't care about making the mistakes. What I'm worried about is you picking yourself up and redeeming yourself. Whether it's you missed a tackle, but you came back and 2 phases later made a tackle and jackled the ball, something like that. Attitude, the mental side is just as important as the physical side of the game, and that's what I try to impress upon the players. Is I don't care who we're playing, what the stats are, who the favorite is. That we may have beaten these guys in the past, they may have beaten us in the past. I don't care. This is the challenge you're facing right here and right now. Believe you can win. Trust the process. 15 guys working together on that field as one. cannot lose. But you have to be working together, no individuals.
That's right. The ultimate team game.
Yes. Another question. Are you happy overall with how the season was set up in terms of amount of games and how the championship was set up?
Was that for me or for Ethan?
No, for you.
I'm happy with it. I think Kirk's done a great job in terms of scheduling and putting things together. It was a shame that Gulf Coast couldn't compete. I'm not a fan of making that drive to Fort Myers, but it's not good for the overall game.
Afterwards, after the game.
Absolutely, yeah. But I'm happy with the way it's gone. At least for us, the buys came at opportune times. The travel really wasn't a major issue for us. I'm happy with how the season's gone so far, and we're looking forward to the playoffs.
So are we.
So hosting the Gators this weekend. Give us some information on where and when, Ed, for the game.
Game will be on campus. Should be at the same field that our other games are on. Which Ethan, that's the Lot 17 field, right?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What I have there?
Yes. Close enough, Charlie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the field with the trees on the two sides or by the parking lot. We are shooting for a 1 p.m. or a 2 p.m. kickoff. We're working with the school on that. There should be a reserve grade game either before or after, depending on how UF's traveling.
That's great.
Good stuff. And you got one of the best wrestlers in the state, Randall Johnson. So that he should be primed for a big one there between you guys, and I'm sure it'll be a close one coming down to the end. Well, Ed and Ethan, thanks so much for coming on the show. Good luck this weekend and the rest of the way.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good evening,
boys.
Bye-bye.
Now I know the history behind Dead Birds, Charlie. I always used to see that. I said that's not their nickname, which is silly that the school doesn't allow the actual nickname. But listen, we're used to some nonsense here at the college level in Florida. We're dealing with some of the university folks. All right, good stuff. Tropical Sevens, a couple coming up in 3 weeks, and the playoffs for the colleges starting this week. We'll go over those matches a little bit later. Alex, I'm not going to try and pronounce Alex M. Ross. I'm sure that's not how you pronounce it, but he says that. Yeah, listen, UNF were predicted to be dead last in the coaches poll, and have proved everybody wrong. As you said, injuries have played a little part. I know they've lost 3 of the last 4, I think, but got off to that great start, and as a result, get themselves a home game in the playoffs, which, as we know, in college can be such a massive impact, Charlie, because travel can be so long.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Let's get into some high school stuff. There was a couple of games. Do you want to go to highlights first, Charlie, or do you want to go to Mr. Lawson first?
I would like to mention our sponsor because you forgot to mention him.
I did forget our sponsor.
And I'm always trying
to. And I talked to him on the phone today too, which makes it even worse.
Oh, okay. I reminded him because I'm always trying to get him on just for a couple of minutes. Chris is always fun, and he's been a great supporter, one of the greatest of rugby in Florida.
Yes.
So, but he didn't show up again, so he must be at the beach or skating or doing some kind of.
He's a very busy man. As you can see at the bottom there, if you have any tax, estate, or financial planning needs, feel free to contact Chris. You can call him or text him at 954-239-7344. So, what do you want to do? Highlights now, Charlie, or do you want to go to? Let's maybe do some highlights for us. Let's break it up a little bit here. We haven't had.
Okay.
We didn't have too many highlights. There wasn't that many games this weekend, obviously, that we had taped. But we did have 2 U19 games locally here that were unfortunately a little one-sided.
They were. Let's get to the Gibbons game, playing against Wellington.
Now, obviously, the big thing in high school right now, there's 3 teams. Well, I was going to say there was 4 teams kind of pulling away from the pack. The home field for the quarterfinals is pretty much set already with all 4 of the South Florida teams. Looks like they're going to be hosting quarterfinals, leaving the likes of Jacks, Tampa, Hammerheads, and Cape Pirates to travel. This game I thought was going to be a little closer, but you can just see, Charlie, just the sheer size difference between some of these boys on Wellington who are in 4th place at the moment. So it could host Cape Pirates, or look at the rest of the standings, Charlie, but they should be able to host a playoff game. But the key part in this game was to be obviously the top 4 teams running away with it, but the top 2 teams will host in the semis. So that's what they're all fighting for right now, is to potentially be one of the top 2 seeds. And this one got out of hand a little early, Charlie.
Yeah.
Gibbons, obviously, I think their last game was that loss to Boca, right?
Yes, correct. The game before this
Mark Martinovich. There's Danny, the kicker for Gibbons, watching that one curve by. It was a little breezy out there this weekend. So Gibbons fighting for that top spot. It's very, very tight between them, Boca. And Okapi. I was going to see if I could pull up the standings while not on the screen, but I was just going to pull up the standings while we were looking at these number of tries scored by Gibbons, who again a little angry after that loss to Boca a couple of weeks ago in what was a great game that I reffed. Let me see if I can see the standings. I'm pulling it up on my own screen, so we don't have to get in the way of these highlights.
Just a reminder: in high school, the points that they credit to on the table is 25. It doesn't go further than that.
Oh, okay. So the maximum is 25. Gotcha. Yeah. So
they're not going to add up on the table.
There are some games that will decide. Funnily enough, none of the 4 top teams play each other either in the final week either. Okapi will host Jacksonville, who make a second straight trip down here because they just played Boca this weekend. So it's a tough finish to the season for the Wolverines with 2 5-hour trips. Boca will head over to play Hammerheads on the West Coast, and Gibbons will head up to play Cape Pirates. So we'll see if any of the top 4 teams change position, but it looks like it's going to be Gibbons, Boca, Okapi, and Wellington hosting in the quarterfinals, which those semifinals, Charlie, I'm looking forward to those. Those are going to be on the 9th, which, of course, unfortunately, is also state championship day for the men and women up in Titusville. Because then the kids are taking, obviously, the weekend off for Tropical Sevens, and then we'll be back with the championship. There's a big man sprinting down the left wing there.
Yeah, let's get to the Boca highlights because the Gibbons one are so long.
Yeah, do go on. Here we have Boca and Jacksonville playing in slightly not clashing uniforms, but 2 teams in black and red.
Oh yeah, that was tough.
There's our man. Is that Vicente, right? We spoke to
a
couple of weeks ago from Chile, and he was playing 10 yesterday. We asked him where he wanted to play, Charlie, and he said he wanted to play fly half, and he was allowed that on Saturday against Jacksonville, and Boca ran away with this one late. I know it took them a little bit to get going, but Boca with a very physical team, good defensive unit, obviously a long trip for Jacks.
I would say very good defense. Jacksonville had them like for more than 10 minutes and they're 22, and they just, couldn't get through. And the first half was, I think, 12-0, something like that. It wasn't that much. And then in the second half, they took off.
Yeah, nice running line there. We got
very nice game.
Logan Ballinger playing outside. That man there, Jordan Vassell. They got a very talented backline, Boca, probably.
Oh, yeah.
One of the best backlines in the state when healthy. Cody Bahalik at scrum half as well. I'm really looking forward to the semifinals, Charlie. I think the quarterfinals may be a little one-sided, except perhaps maybe the 4-5. The 4-5 quarterfinal, whether it be Wellington against Cape or Wellington against who's right behind them? Tampa. Let me see. Oh, sorry, it's Jacksonville in 5th at the moment. So Jacksonville could have to make the trip down to play Wellington. Still plenty of movement to go. I know we've got, isn't there still one to be potentially, was it Gibbons Tampa, Charlie? There's still left to be sort of sorted out? I don't know.
No, the 2 games that were not played were ruled as forfeits by the now that we have a board at the FYRU.
Yes, we do. We'll talk to Alan Lawson
and for Tampa
in a second about that. Let's see, come Boca just piling it on a little bit in the second half. So I'm almost looking forward I'm looking more forward to these semifinals, I think, Charlie, than any other game left on the schedule, I think.
Sorry?
Oh, the little chip and chase. I said I think the 2 semifinals from the high school side I'm looking forward to more than any other games.
Absolutely.
I think the rest of the way. The other 2, I think the D3 finals should be fun as well, although I think Palm Beach, if they do make it, which they should, would be, I would think, relatively heavy favorites to win that. D2, Trident's perhaps the class, although Naples are coming on strong here at the end. We'll get to all that stuff in a minute. There's a good view. Charlie, who was that?
Yeah, that was me taping. I got off the ladder.
Fancy. I'm surprised you got I'm surprised you got back off the ground after that.
And he missed the kick because he kicked to the second post, not the first one. I have to talk to that kid.
There's Logan Ballinger with the cut back inside. A referee there, Tom Champ, who was supposed to ref Boca Orlando men's playoff game on Saturday, or yesterday, I should say, and that obviously didn't happen because Orlando forfeited. So thanks to Tom for just moving over and refereeing the boys instead. Penalty there for not rolling away. Strong secondary signals from Mr. Ciampa, which I'm sure the fans on the sideline appreciate.
He gave out 2 yellow cards for Boca in the first half.
Yeah, yellow card. Listen, cards are used to control situations which, if you're not listening to your whistle, sometimes you got to pull the cards out.
One interesting thing I saw in this game, the Boca kids, they attempted a 40-meter kick from a penalty.
Oh yeah, Vicente can kick him.
He did miss it, by not too much, but it was interesting because I was over here and the coach saying, let him kick, because if this comes to in a real game, you have to go through that, situation where you're 40 meters away and this kid can kick. You should try it. That was very interesting.
He could definitely be the difference, Charlie, in a playoff game.
Oh, for sure.
With the foot that he has here with the man from Chile. And that's the end of that one. Right, one-sided score from Boca.
Nice game. They were well behind. These Jacksonville kids, they're very nice. Got to talk.
I know you chatted a bit with Coach Aaron Church after the game.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned that video got, I don't know what happened, but I lost it, so I owe it to him again.
You're fired. Well, he's back down next week, Charlie. You can just get it.
Yeah. Catch up. Yeah.
All right. Let's get on to our final guest of the evening, unless anybody else decides to jump on later. Alan Lawson.
Mr. Lawson.
New chairman of the FYRU board. Alan, welcome. What's your official position with Wellington? I can't remember. What are you? Coach, general manager, owner?
I'm the president.
VIP?
Yeah, just the president.
Alan is the president of the Wellington Wizards, who, as you saw in those first highlights, took a bit of a beating at the hands of Cardinal Gibbons, but that's something a lot of people have experienced over the last couple of years. But Alan, we're here to talk about the FYRU, and I'm here to talk about Wellington tonight.
That's good, because those highlights were tough to watch.
Yeah, sorry about that, Alan. Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Listen, it happens. FYRU. Now, Charlie and I always used to have a laugh back in the day, say, who's in charge of the FYRU? And nobody really knew. But now we know. We finally know who's in charge of youth rugby in Florida. We have a board. Alan, talk about how this came about and what your goals are and visions are as the new board of the FYRU.
Well, how this came about, I think Evan had a kind of a roadmap with the, after the AGM, and then kind of once the season got started, he started to facilitate, discussion. And, a lot of times what happens, they line you up and you don't necessarily get nominated. You're standing in line. Everybody else stands backwards and you're the one standing at the front of the line. So that's pretty much what happened. But I think, I think the view of it is that, we've actually had people that at the ground level with, with Victoria and Aaron and Joe and with Garth on the board and me as well. We have people that are involved in the day-to-day that help kind of, change some things and policies that affect the actual rugby community. So I think that's kind of what our whole goal is. And just, there are some things that we got to do. If we still have to finish out, I got to write them up and get them in for the next meeting on the 15th, but scopes and responsibilities of jobs. I think we were talking earlier, Charlie, we put the minutes out, make them available. We have an agenda that gets published. So these are the type of things that, again, I think, we've been, doing this for 8 years. Transparency is key to help kind of calm the waters. And I think that's really our main goal, is be transparent. Listen, our hearts are all in the right place. Try to do the right thing. And there's some things that we're going to address, and we've already addressed already. So, it's just one of those things, and do it in a balanced approach, and also a communication. I've got to get a kind of a quarterly letter that's going to go out once a month, things that are going on, to start explaining things like the playoff system. who's ranked and how it works. Simple things like that, to
Yes.
where people aren't scratching their head on a weekend. You're talking to a president and they're like, I have no idea who I'm playing next week. So, it's just that kind of stuff where and I think what's really been cool, across the union is I get a lot of text messages, and I think I'm kind of known as a straight shooter, and I don't I'm not a lot. I don't operate in gray. I'm kind of black and white, and it is what it is. And there are some things that I can't do anything about it, because that's what the way the bylaws are, the current laws are within the union.
Right.
And if it needs to go forward, to bring it forward, let's do it. If there's a better way to do it, we need that. We need to make these changes. And then I think the other piece of it too is, again, the Wizards are the only one from a girls rugby perspective, and I think, we're looking at. I've got some people tagged to come in to help with kind
Good.
of the girls side, and that engagement, and try to push. Not well, it is push. I'm sorry. We need to push this, and get girls more active, and so that it's just not the Wellington Wizards that have the only high school girls team. It's kind of sad, and that we have the state tournament coming. We got to bring a team down from Georgia to play us at the state tournament. So, it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, listen, Tropical Sevens is a great example. I'm sure we're not going to have many girls teams, if at any. Are you guys going up? And it's like, well, where are your girls teams here? It's frustrating. I know there's several challenges, I'm sure, for you as a board. What do you think is your biggest challenge, Alan, as a board here coming into? Obviously, not much you can do for this season, but heading into next season, what are you, other than the girls? What are your one or two of your biggest challenges?
I think, to be honest with you, I think it's communication and transparency. I think once you kind of clear that, and people realize that there is this back and forth, because at the end of the day, it's not the board that runs the union. It's really the club presidents, and they got to feel like that they have an avenue, to where that they can discuss issues and situations that are happening with their clubs, or for whatever reason. And I think building that, and I think what'll happen is more good will come out of that as that relationship becomes stronger.
Good stuff. Charlie, anything for Alan before?
Yeah, what do you think about, Ross was asking, what are the issues ahead of you? And I would say, like, growth would be one of the priorities.
Yep.
And in two senses, because, for example, on the boys' side, it's sort of I just don't see like a strong growth in the past. We always have the pandemic that sort of screwed up things, and who knows, we're still like seeing the consequences. But for example, it's like one of the things that we should be looking at, in my opinion, is if you have a U19 team, you should have a U16 team. And I'm not trying like to force things upon the teams, because each team has their own situation. Obviously, some teams, it seems to me like teams who are like within small cities, like you guys or Capi or Key Biscayne, they're like contained, they have more support, they tend to do better. But like this year, and I'm always thinking, let's try to do better next year, okay? Like last year, regarding the U16, age group, there was basically just two teams, and when we started this year, it looked like we were going to have six, which was awesome. But then as the season started, it sort of fizzled away, and we ended up with.
I would take it one step further, Charlie. Look, we have high school teams that don't have youth programs. That in and of itself is a problem. I mean, if you don't have a feeder system, look, I know, I struggle. I mean, we can play U16 sometimes and not, and obviously the season's gone on, and we've got some players down and hurt. And then, you really need to have 50 high schoolers in order to fulfill a U16 and U19 team. Now, we have 100 youth players in our program. I think 80 of them are U14s down. But I don't know why we need to have a discussion with these high school teams. They need to invest in the youth. It makes your life easier if you have a U10, a U12, and a 4, and it feeds into your program. And instead of having to go find 15 kids every year, you got to go find 5. And thank God for that, because I recruit all year round. I mean, I'm at dinner at places and kids or football games, and I talk to kids and all the time. And I'm constantly recruiting. It's a year-round job, and I think a lot of people don't realize that either. It is not just, oh, it's coming out of July, but it's June through July, or July through June. It's a 12-month deal. And you got, and it's funny. I think Boca is on the upswing, and they've got the right formula now. But it's going to continue to be Key Biscayne, Okapi, Wellington, and Boca with the youth, unless these other programs step in. Now, I think Aaron Church and Aaron Church and Aaron Carter got a great formula system for the youth in Jacksonville. I think that's fantastic. And then, Joe Hildish is very, very creative, and he's very energized and motivated to. I mean, look, if he could get a system within the middle school and run that program down, he could almost essentially have his own youth program, and then we could go up and visit and have big festivals in his area. And I think the more that these teams travel and have festivals, the more that it'll grow in the area, because it just brings that excitement. That's why the Wizards where they are today is because we traveled and we were allowed to have festivals, and when that happened, it brought other people to the club.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about Charlie. When I was growing up playing youth rugby, till I was about 15 or so, all I played was mini tournaments. You just went to a town and they hosted a tournament, and that's what you played in for the day. You didn't go play individual games. It seems like those have been a real success that are cracking with you guys. So perhaps that is the future. Any new teams on the horizon, Alan? On Orlando, we heard from them perhaps about getting back in the swing of things.
I think, and that's another thing too. We had a discussion around, MSA populations, and Orlando. There should be a club there. I don't know how it happens, but I will tell you, and part of the problem is, the municipalities. It's a little tough sometimes to get space. You go in there and you say, "Hey, I'm looking to start a rugby club," and a lot of, I mean, listen, when we first started, I couldn't get fields here in Wellington, and I ended up going up to, up to Loxahatchee and up there, and they let us in, and the Palm Beach County system let us win our first 2 seasons out there. And then what happens is we start winning state championships, and all of a sudden, oh, hey, we would love, and the city for us has been awesome. So, and of course, as you guys know, the new facility that we have that we share with lacrosse is phenomenal. And so we are very, very blessed. And it's been 7 years, and they've been talking about it for 5, and they partner with us. So I've been very, very, very lucky and fortunate.
Yeah, especially in big cities like Orlando, you might get fields on one side of the city, but you may have players on the other side of the city. It's a lot different when you have such a big area to cover. Go ahead, Charlie.
That is an issue, of course, the field thing, but I think it's the main thing is having that group of people that actually want to do this. The core group of a couple of coaches, a couple of parents that want to start a rugby club. And because I mean, I had that experience starting Miami Rugby with basically nothing, just sneaking onto parks where we shouldn't even be, and then progressing from there. But I think that's the most important thing. And in that sense, I was going to ask you if this, and to play rugby, you need a coach. So whenever you think of starting, a new team, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, you need a proper coach, because rugby is not soccer that has just 10 rules and don't kill a ball and that's it, right?
Yeah, so, typically it's a father, right, or somebody's come in and they've played rugby, and they, whether it be from England or here in the U.S. or from Australia or from South Africa, and they want their kids to play. And the other thing too, people don't realize, it's to start a rugby club. It's a minimum, $5,000. Between the uniforms, you know, the referee fees. I mean, you have to have $5,000 in the bank. That's what it cost us back in 2013, 2014 to start the Wizards, and I think it was the same for Mariano when they started Okapi back, you know, 8 years ago. So, you know, I mean, think about that, because you got to buy the uniforms up front. You got to make sure that you can pay for the field, pay for the refs. I mean, you got to have some money, and the fundraising side of it's huge. And um, you know, I'll be honest with you, back then I just wrote a check, and that's how I got started. And you know, but I'll be honest with you, believe Mariano probably did the same thing. And you know, the good news is Boca has been around for so long that it just kind of morphed into where they are today. And I think the same thing with Key Biscayne. They've just kind of morphed into what they are today. But you know, that's one of the things. The problem is you got to set them up with somebody in a place if you target it. But you know, look, you got to have, like you said, you got to have the coach. Do you have the funds? Do you have the jersey? Where are you getting your jerseys? You know, what is your policy with the city? You know, are you the sports provider? Because you know, the good thing about, like with Weston, I think with Boca, with us, and with Key Biscayne, is that we are the sports provider of rugby for that city. So nobody else come in and say, "Oh, we're starting a rugby club," and use the parks, and that's huge, because it could create a serious problem.
For sure. Well, I'm excited, Charlie. This is a new dawn.
Oh, for
in
sure.
Florida youth rugby. We finally know who's in charge.
Again, I'm not.
I'm
not. I'm just, you know,
No, you're one of the board, right? We
Yes,
know there is a board
fair.
that exists now, which we
Yes.
didn't have before. Well, we did briefly, and then it kind of fell apart. And Charlie and I would always laugh about who was in charge. But it's an organization where there are people getting involved that don't know about rugby, right?
No,
and they
and
need
again,
that board there to support them.
Yeah, and you guys brought up the situation with the forfeits, right? So that we had a board vote, you know, with the whole, you know, Key Biscayne, and it was a Key Biscayne and
Tampa
Tampa,
Gibbons, I think.
Cardinal Gibbons in Tampa, sorry. You know, and we just had an honest, frank conversation. And, you know, there's simple things that you can just say, look, if the original thing is, if the original team doesn't show up, I get it that for whatever reason, um, you know, that's probably defaults to, that's where the original fault lies, right? And then from there you can go from there. But I think that there needs to be discussion around, look, if a team goes to schedule that game and they don't want to play it because, you know, whether it's 2 or 3 or 5 of their stars aren't around that weekend, you know, that's you know, that you're pushing it on, you know, is that fair to give that team a forfeit or not? And you know, I think, you know, we need to, the problem is, I think that's something that we discuss around, you know, how forfeits work and how it's going to be. And, you know, having the excuse that, you know, if you got 30 kids in your program and, but your 5 starters aren't showing, you got to make this game up, and you're not doing it because your 5 starters. There's probably, you know, we need to change the rules to make sure that it's properly accounted for, because that game should have been played. Right. And then, you know, you can't have teams going back and forth. It just, you got to draw the line in the sand and say, hey, here are the rules. And sometimes maybe we penalize both teams. Maybe it shouldn't be just one team. Maybe sometimes you penalize both, because you're not going to get change until people feel the pain.
But the U19s had a good season. These 2 games that were not played, one was
because, I agree, 100%.
You know, Key Biscayne was traveling to that tournament for one of them, and then the Gibbons Tampa one. Tampa guys had some COVID issues. You know, it wasn't.
Yeah, it happens.
Other than that, you guys have been. I mean, that division has been pretty solid.
It's very solid, and we're very fortunate.
Even the teams
not a lot of, think about it too. There's rain. Listen, there's rainouts, and
we've been lucky. Yeah,
Key Biscayne has traveled up to us and played us on a Monday night. You know, they've traveled up to us, and honestly, they had. I think you may have reffed that game. And then, you know, we've had Key Biscayne travel up to us, or, you know, Weston has gone to play somebody on a Wednesday night, or even Boca. You know, it happens. You do what you got to do to get it done, and the only way that people are doing it is that, you know, it's important that, you know, you have some sort of point system that facilitates the games being played. And just, you know, I just think we tweak it a little bit, make it look a little bit better, and make sure that all the games are played next year. We've been blessed with weather, by the way. We've been blessed with weather. I cannot
We have this
believe
year.
we
We've been
haven't.
very lucky.
Knock on wood, right? Watch the state. The good news is, at least at the state tournament, if it rains there's turf. So no matter what happens, unless there's a thunder and lightning, we're playing.
Well, hey, listen, Alan, I have an important question for you. Just mentioned the finals. Are you going to put those posts on the try line?
Yes.
Okay.
We're getting some things. So what we're gonna put it on the try line.
That was my biggest fear for that. That was my biggest fear.
No, we're gonna cover them up, and we're gonna cover them up and have. Awesome. So look, most kids don't run back behind there because it does have that kind of that U shape, so it keeps it steady. But yeah, I mean, these players will figure it out.
Okay, great.
Now, before we let you go, I know you're involved with the Jaguares, the all-star representative, whatever side you want to call it. I know you had a session today. How's Jaguares going, and what are we looking at for competition for them? Obviously, other than Jacksonville.
I think we've got. I think the difference between last year and this year is I think it's been interesting. This has been a really tough season. I think last year, right, we didn't play all of our games, and look, our boys got beat up yesterday, and they're feeling it today. And some of the boys that should have been there at practice, listen, someone can't get out of bed. I've got one that's I think out for the season. So, that would have played who started last year on Juarez. So, I think we're getting hit and misses, and we were talking about, Gavin and I were talking about that today, and I think what's going to happen with Juarez is the last one is here in Wellington after the state tournament May 1st, and then we'll be utilizing those two fields to play. We were talking about a kind of a scrimmage format, and the only way that you can get selected is that you have to be at least present, and you've had to come to some of the practices, because literally it's May 1st, the following weekend is May 8th, and then we've got to have scrimmages to figure that out to get the team right. Then you got the 5th, and then it's the 15th. 4 days later, you're driving up to Jacksonville to play in fit. So it's going to come real fast, and it's going to be interesting.
Good stuff. Well, thanks as always for coming on, Alan. Thanks for all the effort, time, and I know you mentioned money that you've put into Florida rugby over the years. And good luck the rest of the way.
Appreciate you guys. Have me on anytime.
And with the board.
Yes, have me on anytime and ask me any questions, Charlie. I keep it straight to you. So,
how long are you going to be chairman of the board? Is this 1 year term?
This is 1 year term, and then they're probably going to kick me out. So there you go.
All right, good stuff from Alan Lawson of Wellington Wizards, and now the Florida Youth Rugby Union, as well as Jaguares. He wears a lot of hats on that big head.
Oh yeah,
yes I do.
Cheers, Alan. Good stuff from Alan Lawson. Well,
busy man.
He is a very busy man and does the Lord's work when it comes to youth rugby here, with Wellington, Jaguares, and now the FYRU. So let's take a look. Well, let's take a look at our scores from this past weekend, Charlie. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't get ahead of ourselves. We do have some scores to talk about from this past. Well, yesterday. It seems like it was a week ago already. I actually had a quiet weekend for once, but
that is true. Yeah.
Let's take a look at our scores from the final Saturday in March on the Florida rugby side of things. Here we are. So FIU, which ended up being a good win for FIU because that gave them a home playoff game.
For sure.
To jump above the Gators, I think it was. So the FIU, well, they were above the Gators, but they had to win to secure that home playoff game. So they will host USF. Am I right, Charlie, in the...
Well, see, now
we
have to go back and forth.
Yes, there you go. So yes, FIU hosting USF. So I've got it in my head now. We can go back to the other one now. Okay. So UF and USF. Now we have to give a shout out to Haley Slaughter, Charlie. She got married on Friday.
No, really?
She did. She decided her husband.
She could have forfeited that game. See, that would be a reasonable forfeit for Haley.
I know. I don't know her husband's name, but he was graciously nice enough to allow her to referee the USF game, which had 81 points in it. And then before they went on their honeymoon, I think just around the corner, in the middle of the woods somewhere. So a win there for USF. FSU hung on to their I think they had a chance perhaps at not getting number 1 seed if they lost this game to UNF, but they came out and shut out the Deadbirds 27-0. Another big shout out to Kyle Vandeventer, who drove up from Naples to Tallahassee to ref that game. He may have refed the B game as well, I think, but Kyle's a machine. He'll go anywhere to ref. I think if I sent him to New York, he'd probably start walking now.
I wonder
so big shout out to Kyle.
I wonder who's paying all those miles for Kyle, because he's been driving a lot this season, huh?
No, the union takes care of him there too. Our ref that we had to do those games decided he was going to retire from refereeing rugby for now in the middle of the week, so we had to scramble a little bit with that one. The Hammerheads, they defeated Miami. Now Hammerheads have won. I think that's 4 or 5 in a row now, Charlie. They got off to that slow start, but are now coming on strong. We can look at their schedule somewhat. No, maybe not.
No, it is.
Charlie's got a bad.
It's a little bit confusing.
Oh, there they are. They're in the red there. But yeah, they've won, I think, 4 or 5 in a row now. So coming on strong. I saw we had a comment from Tristan Ducook in the comments that Hammerheads remember the name, but they're going to have a very tough road to the championship. We'll get to that in a little bit. Boca with the forfeit victory in the quarterfinal of D2 there. Sarasota, that was a nice road win, Charlie. I wasn't sure what Sarasota would take up to Jacksonville. Jacksonville they held Brevard, I know, tight earlier in the season up there in the northeast corner of the state, but Sarasota, nice victory there for the Surge. They will now have the trip over to Palm Beach in the semifinals, which we'll get to in a second. Tallahassee with a forfeit win over Ave Maria. I think Claymores had talked about replacing Ave Maria in that one, but they also pulled out. So nobody for Tallahassee to play in the end. Echoed with a strong performance. The college boys hanging in there with the Gainesville Hogs, 27-15 as Gainesville advance to the other D4 semifinal. Well, they will play, I think, at Daytona. We'll get to that in a minute. And Daytona with a forfeit victory over Fort Lauderdale. And then the D4 quarterfinal in Okapi, that's in Weston. They held off Lakeland. Nice little fight from Lakeland. Okapi had been on a roll for the most part until they lost. They lost one late. They haven't lost, I think. Maybe not. I thought they'd lost one. Maybe not. But they defeated Lakeland.
See, we can go and see anybody's record here. Where's Okapi? There you go.
Yes.
One.
Oh, no losses. Yes, they had the forfeits. That's what maybe I was thinking of.
They're on a roll.
But unfortunately, Okapi, despite not losing a game, have to go travel now to Tallahassee.
Yeah, but
for the semifinals.
But you know what? I inquired about this to the union, and this because they are the South first seed, and Brevard is already. I don't know what thing it is.
You're getting mixed up with D4 and D3 now, Charlie. Don't get your divisions mixed up.
Oh shit! Okay, yeah, but
we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute when we talk about the matches for this weekend. And then we talked about the high school games. We talked about Gibbons and Boca with handy shutout wins, and then Hammerheads with a win over Cape Pirates, 33-12. Both of those teams will have to travel, I think, in the first round of the U19 playoffs. Yeah. And then UCF with a forfeit win, and that bottom game was never going to happen. So let's now take a look at the playoff situations. The playoffs really get going this week. Let's look at SQC men first. So FAU just lost to UCF 2 weeks ago down in Boca. We'll now have to travel back up to face the Knights in the first quarterfinal. FSU is the top seed. There's only 7 teams in the college division, so FSU gets a bye. They will host the winner of the third game, which we'll get to in a second, in next week's in the ninth, in the semifinals on the 9th. So FAU at UCF, UF at UNF. UNF handily beat the Gators earlier this season, but as the guys from the Deadbird said, dealing with a few injuries, that game might be a little closer this time around. And then USF at FIU. FIU with a sneaky good season, Charlie. They sort of come around, and I know they've got some big boys, and they got a home game now against USF. That should be a really tight, exciting one as well. And then as you see there, the semifinals on the 9th, FSU hosting the winner of FIU USF. And then
I'm not entirely sure if that is correct.
Yes, we've had back and forth discussions with Kirk Swanner, the commissioner of the FCC, about whether reseeding will be happening. Now, reseeding means that as the top seed, you will play the lowest remaining seed. So say if the 8th seed upsets, say if FAU upsets UCF, will FAU travel to Tallahassee, or will the original FIU USF winner travel to Tallahassee? I still haven't got a straight answer. Whether I ever will, I don't know. Kirk might just wait to see who wins the games before deciding who he wants to play as Seminoles, but that's another story for another day. Let's
Yeah, even the final, we don't really know.
Final is definitely being hosted by whatever the top seed remaining is.
So whoever's playing the final,
yes,
in
likely
the
Tallahassee.
In the regular season, right?
Yes, likely Tallahassee.
Okay.
It would have to be, Tallahassee wins there. They just win one game and they host the final.
I have been told it's going to be live streamed. So
ooh, technology, we're getting up there, Charlie. We're catching up. All right. What's next on in the playoffs updates? Men's Division 2. So we mentioned the two games. Well, one game that happened yesterday was the Hammerheads advancing. They will have the trip, not a long trip, but an hour and a half, 2 hours over to play the Tridents, who have looked very, very strong, Charlie, this season.
They have.
And then Boca, courtesy of their forfeit win over Orlando, will travel.
Listen, I just want to
Tampa.
I just want to give a little shout out to Miami, because even despite the results on the field, I have to say this is one of the teams that has played the most games throughout the season, and they have never forfeited any game.
Nope, they've got good numbers, Charlie. They just
and they were like
talent.
They were like rebuilding because the team went through some stuff,
some changes, yes, managerial wise.
And
but no, I refed them 2 or 3 times this season, and they never gave up. Every game they fought to the last minute, hard hitting, and they'll certainly benefit from that next year.
Oh yeah,
there's no doubt about it. So Trident Hammerheads has Tampa Boca in the semis with the final on the 9th in Titusville.
So what are your predictions?
Predictions
as we go through the games.
I think Tridents handle Hammerheads by at least 2 or 3 tries. I think Tampa edges that one against Boca by less than the Tridents beat the Hammerheads. That's what I'm going to say.
Yes. Okay, yeah, I agree.
But it should be a Tridents Tampa final, I would think.
Which we had 2 years ago.
Sure, you whatever you say, Charlie. I can't remember yesterday.
Oh, I remember those games because I always tape them in. That was a very close game 2 years ago when Di Morgan was coaching. Remember that time?
One of my AirPods died. Can you still hear me, Charlie?
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
Let's go to the men's Division 3. Sarasota with that win at Jacksonville. They moved to play Palm Beach, who have looked very difficult to beat as well in D3. So Sarasota at Palm Beach this weekend, and then the Pelicans, who we apparently pissed off last week, Charlie.
Why?
Playing at Brevard. I think because we said they weren't going to beat Brevard, but
you said.
I said that. Yes, I'm still going to stick with that prediction. But, listen, I think if there's an upset to happen in the playoffs, D3 and D2, that is the one I think there's perhaps the best chance of an upset. So it wouldn't totally shock me if the Pelicans. It just depends who they travel with. It's that's always the case in Florida rugby. It's not a particularly long trip across the state, but still a trip nonetheless.
Yeah, they seem pretty motivated. The Pellies, they have a good season.
This is the one you were talking about, Charlie, with why the Pellies as West number 1 were traveling to East number 2.
Correct, and that was decided prior to the season beginning, and
Correct.
Every team knew it if they had bothered just to read what they were getting, which they don't for the most part.
Rugby people read. Yes,
Brevard it was something of the nature of like Brevard having a tougher season. I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but I got an explanation from Kerry today. But everybody knew, so it should be to no surprise.
It did. Communication is key, and as long as they knew,
yeah,
that's all that matters.
It was made up.
Last but not least, what do we have, Charlie? Here we got the ladies to finish us off.
I'm gonna go with the Pellies on this one.
Okay.
If anything, just to have a different final, which would be exciting, because it gets a little bit boring. I still love Brevard. Don't get me wrong, but
listen, I ref that Palm Beach Brevard final 2 years. No, that was Palm Beach Gainesville. Or was it Brevard? It might have been Gainesville. But yeah, it's always 2 of those 3 teams, right? Normally.
Yeah. That was Gainesville.
D4. Before we get to the ladies, D4. Okapi moving on as well as Gainesville with the 2 games that were actually played. So it is the 3 northern-ish teams versus with Okapi hanging in there. I haven't seen many of these teams play. I think Daytona handles Gainesville quite easily, but this Tallahassee Okapi game is the interesting one, Charlie.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a long trip for Okapi, though. I think I perhaps just lean Tallahassee, but I think this game is definitely going to be decided by single digits.
Yeah, they're very motivated also, the Okapi guys, because they have a great season.
Yeah, they finally, right? We always talked about when they were going to get their stuff together, and it's happened this year. And I think Tallahassee at home may just be the difference there in that one. Hopefully, Okapi go up the night before and
it's going to be
get
tough.
a good night's sleep in the Panhandle before. Hopefully, they don't make that trip in the morning. But I know hotels are expensive this time of year with spring break.
Well,
good work on the graphics here as always, Charlie.
Thank you. I thought you were not going to mention it, man.
And last but not least, the ladies. There they are. Tampa had the forfeit over Jacksonville, who decided to save their money in bodies instead of getting hammered by Tampa. They just forfeited in their semifinal. And then Fort Miami hosting Orlando. That game will be at Athlete Range before the Tridents game. So great day of rugby there.
Oh, yeah. They're going to be 3 games at that field.
3 playoff games. 12.
No,
sorry. The high school game's not playoffs. So, but 12, 2, and 4, with 4 o'clock being Key Biscayne hosting Tampa.
Yeah.
So 6 hours of rugby, if you can handle it. There'll be some people that'll be there for all 6 hours. Fort Miami.
And stuff, so, you know.
Yeah, Fort Miami lost up in Orlando earlier this season in a close game and then hammered the Griffins down here a few weeks ago. So I think I have to give the edge to Fort Miami, who've got stronger as the season has gone on. Absolutely. Of course, that championship game will be on the 9th. Also in Titusville. Beautiful Titusville. You can go visit the Kennedy Space Center while you're there. You ever been there, Charlie?
To the Kennedy? No. To the Kennedy thing, no.
Sort of Floridian are you? I wonder something. We are Uruguayan Floridian.
I don't travel too much.
Definitely one of those places you should check out if you're in the area. Well, exciting stuff, Charlie. We almost went an hour and a half tonight. We had some great talkers, some great information on UNF, who you and I aren't familiar with, being at the opposite corner of the state. So that was good to catch up with them.
Yeah, we always try to bring in those teams that because the ones that we have here in South Florida, in part because of the videotaping that we get them off frequently, but yeah, good to have these guys from UNF for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to Alan as well as John from Tropical 7. So we're back here, I think, same time next week. And then you can always check us out on the replay on Facebook, YouTube, as well as all podcast platforms, audio only, if you don't want to look at our faces, which I totally understand. And good luck to everybody in the playoffs this coming Saturday. Good luck to you, Charlie, on top of a ladder, wherever you might be.
Hopefully not on top of any ladder,
Yeah, get your minions to work. Well,
I'm going to try to be at the Tridents game to watch my son.
Oh, there you go. Yes. So,
yes.
Thanks to Chris Ream, as always, our sponsor. And we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for everybody for tuning in.
Thank you, Russ.
Cheers, Charlie. Good stuff as always.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.